This video will discuss a summary response essay, probably the most common writing assignment assigned in college-level classes. As a college student, you'll often be asked to read something, an article, a chapter from a book, or even an entire book, and then write a response to it. In most cases, your professors will expect you to also include a summary of what you read, hence the name, the summary response essay. These types of essays are assigned in all kinds of classes, including those in the social sciences, the natural sciences, and the humanities. In many cases, professors in those disciplines know what they're looking for when they assign these types of essays, but they won't necessarily take the time to tell you exactly what they're expecting. So it's important that you learn how to write these essays now while you're still at the beginning of your college career. We'll begin with a quick overview of what the summary response essay looks like. A summary response essay is an essay based on an assigned reading, such as an article, chapter, or a book. It's comprised of two distinct parts, a summary of the assigned text and an original reaction or response to the text. The overall purpose of the summary response essay is to engage with the writer, who in almost every case will be a highly educated person on her or his level. It's important to remember that the summary response essay is one of the most common writing assignments done in college-level courses, so it's vitally important that you know how to write this type of essay and write it well. And it's probably also good to know why exactly professors assign so many of these types of essays. So there are two primary reasons. First, these essays are assigned simply to prove that you've read the assigned material. But summary response essays serve a second important function, and that's to prove that you've thought about the assigned reading and maybe even that you've related it to your life in some way. In order to gain an understanding of how to write the summary response essay, we're going to look at some excerpts from an example summary response essay. Before continuing this video, it's very important to make sure that you've carefully read the article "Taxing Sugar to Fund a City" by New York Times columnist Mark Bittman. If you're watching this video as part of a module in Canvas, you should have already completed the reading assignment as part of a separate module. If you're viewing this video on my YouTube channel, you can use the link at the bottom of the screen to pull up the article. A quick Google search of the article's title should also turn up a copy. The first thing to know about how to approach the summary response essay is that there are two completely separate and distinct parts of the essay, the summary portion and the response portion. The summary portion will just be a single paragraph, while the response portion will be at least 3 paragraphs. The vast majority of your word count will be in the response portion of the essay. These two parts of the essay do completely different things, and it may even be helpful to think of them as two separate assignments. We'll begin by looking at the summary portion of the summary response essay. Here's a basic definition of a summary. When writing a summary, one rewrites what an author has written in different words and in a shorter form. In the summary response essay, this is usually done in the first paragraph, and if you're a student in my class, I'll always require that the first paragraph of a summary response essay be a summary of the assigned reading. A good summary has certain characteristics. It follows certain guidelines, and we'll look at 5 of them here. First, a good summary does not include any of your own opinions. It just restates what the author said, and it rewrites what the author said in a shorter form. Also, a good summary includes the main idea and supporting ideas of the assigned reading, and it includes all of the essential information from the reading. Finally, a summary must include the author's first and last name and make absolutely clear that these are the ideas of the author of the assigned reading and not your own. One really good idea when writing a summary is to start with this fill-in-the-blank sentence frame. If you start every summary response essay you write with this sentence frame, you'll be sure that you include several of the essential characteristics of a summary in your summary paragraph, including the author's name, the title of the article, and a summary of the main idea. Here's an example that uses taxing sugar to fund a city. In Taxing Sugar to Fund a City, Mark Bittman argues that taxes on sugary beverages, which are being implemented across the U.S. and around the world, should be implemented more broadly in order to raise tax revenue for worthy projects and safeguard public health. Now we'll look at an example summary response essay that summarizes and responds to the article Taxing Sugar to Fund a City. Here's the first paragraph of the essay, the summary paragraph. Pause the video for a moment and read through it. If you're viewing this video as a module in Canvas, a copy of this example essay can also be found in Canvas. Notice that the summary paragraph begins with the fill-in-the-blank sentence frame we just reviewed. Also notice that it includes the supporting ideas of the article so that someone who had never read the article would have a very good idea what the article is about. That's what a good summary should do. One last thing that might be helpful when writing a summary is to follow the steps in this process. First, read the entire assigned reading. Second, reread the assigned reading and analyze its structure. Look at the order in which the ideas are presented. Take notes as you reread, and you might even want to create an outline. Then, use the fill-in-the-blank sentence frame we looked at to write your opening sentence. And finally, write one sentence about each paragraph or section of the reading. If you do all of this, you should end up with a pretty good summary. Now we'll talk about the response portion of the summary response essay. Remember, the summary portion of the essay is just the first paragraph. The vast majority of the summary response essay, at least 3 paragraphs, will be spent on the response portion of the essay. Here's a basic definition of the response portion of the summary response essay. In the response portion of your essay, you'll talk back to the opinions expressed by the writer. You'll give your own opinions about the topic. You may agree and/or disagree with what the writer said, and you'll likely do both. One thing that makes writing the response paragraphs difficult is that there isn't just one way to do it, but there are 2 common approaches to writing the response. The first one we'll look at is what I like to call the agreement-disagreement approach. As is always the case in the summary response essay, the first paragraph is a summary of the assigned reading. Then, in paragraph 2, you say why you agreed with the writer or why you disagreed with the writer. You do the same in paragraphs 3 and 4. All 3 of these paragraphs could be about why you agreed with the writer, or all of them could be about why you disagreed. One paragraph could be about what you agreed with, and 2 paragraphs could be about what you disagreed with. It's really up to you. Another approach to organizing the response paragraphs is the supporting idea approach. Again, the first paragraph is always a summary. In paragraph 2, you pick out something that the writer said and comment on it. This could be several pages of what the writer said, a single paragraph, or even a single sentence or statement. Your comment could be that you agreed, disagreed, or even that you just related to it in some way. You could even choose to tell a personal story that you were reminded of as you read it. In paragraphs 3 and 4, you do the same thing. Now we'll return to the example summary response essay, the one about taxing a sugar to fund a city, and we'll look at 2 of the response paragraphs from that essay. Here's the first one. Pause the video for a moment and read over it. Notice that this example essay shifts to the first person in this paragraph, using the pronoun I in the first line, and talks about reactions to the article. Notice also that the agreement-disagreement approach is being used here. Here's another paragraph from the example summary response essay. Pause the video again and read over this one. Notice that this paragraph is focusing on disagreement. Not only is it okay to disagree with the author of the assigned reading when you're writing a summary response essay, but it's encouraged. This is what's often referred to as reading critically. It shows that you've really thought about the assigned reading. We'll conclude this video by looking at some tips for success when writing the summary response essay. Here's the first one. When referring to the ideas of the author you're summarizing and responding to, include phrases that call out to the reader that these are someone else's ideas. Here are 2 examples from the example summary response essay that illustrate how to do this. Next, it's good to judiciously use quotes in order to support the ideas you include in your essay. The general rule is to keep the number of quotes to less than 10% of your essay's total word count. Here's an example of how to use a quote to support your ideas. Feel free to use first person in the response portion of your summary response essays. In fact, you'll have to use first person to talk about your own personal experiences, which is encouraged in the response. Also, keep in mind that it's okay to criticize the author if you wish. Just be sure to keep your tone calm, cool, scholarly, civil, and respectful, like in this example. Structure some of your responses around quotes from the text and your own comments about the ideas that are reflected in those quotes. Doing this will make sure that you keep your response focused on the assigned reading. Also, include anecdotes or stories from your personal experience that are related to the ideas in the assigned reading. Telling personal stories is generally encouraged in the response portion of the summary response essay. That concludes this video on the summary response essay.